These playoffs are going to be very interesting for a lot of reasons. You're going to have players trying to get their rings for the first time, teams that have never won championships in the history of the organization, but in this video, we're going to talk about some players that need to step the hell up. To be specific, 6 players that have the most to prove these playoffs. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and press that bell for post notifications to stay up to date with the latest content. We're on the road to 100K. So without further ado, let's get back to the subject at hand and start off with our first player, and we got the spin master himself, Pascal Siakam. Now, I got no love for Pascal Siakam, especially that Raptors fan base. Y'all come like a hive. But Siakam has been hooping this year, and I gotta give him his credit. He probably is going to make an All-NBA team. I didn't see the Raptors getting the 5th seed, and now that they have done it, I can comfortably say I have no problem with Siakam making an All-NBA team, especially over LeBron, who isn't on a winning team whatsoever. But the reason I got Siakam on this list is not just because he had a good regular season and he got to step it up as the best player on the team, which everybody in the league has to do if you're the best player on the team. But I got him on here because the last time we saw Siakam in the playoffs, it wasn't very good. And I'm not just talking about a bad playoff run, I'm talking about one of the worst playoff runs I've ever seen from a guy who made an All-NBA team. Mind you, it was in the bubble where that atmosphere is supposed to be, hey man, everybody can thrive here, it's like open gym, it's like practice, blah blah blah. Yeah, well, it didn't work out for Siakam. One of the worst playoff runs ever. As in the 2 rounds in 2020, he averaged 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists, shooting 40% from the field, 19% from 3, and 72% at the free throw line, which accumulates to a true shooting percentage of 46%. Siakam was horrible offensively, and defensively, he was getting cooked by everybody left and right, whether it was Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, whoever it was, he was getting cooked on that end also. But the real reason he got exposed is because in the half court, you had to actually create your own offense a lot of the times in the bubble because the game slowed down a lot more with no fans. There's less energy to feed off of, hence the effect in Siakam's game, because he's a really great transition player. And Toronto's fans, I gotta give them credit, they're one of the best fan bases in the league. They show up and show out to those games to give them that home court advantage. But now we're in a situation where you're gonna have your fans there. You're now the #1 option on that team. He's been balling out over the last couple of weeks and months. Like I said earlier, he probably will make an All-NBA team, and it will be well deserved because it is a regular season award. But at the end of the day, your first time in the playoffs with Kawhi, you choked in a lot of those games, but Kawhi helped you pull through, and you came through in the finals with some big games, I give you that. But your efficiency was much to be desired, and you were definitely a Kawhi merchant. And then you go into your first real playoffs as the #1 option, and you failed miserably. One of the worst playoff performances that entire year. So now you're getting your second crack at it as the #1 guy. I'm expecting you to step up and show us why you actually have a bag and not just a spin move at your disposal. But let's move on to the next player, and we have KarlAnthony Towns. Now, I like Cat. I think Cat's one of the best players in the league, and you can make the argument he is the best 3-point shooting big of all time. With averages of nearly 25 points a game, nearly 10 rebounds and 4 assists, shooting 53% from the field, 41% from 3 on 5 attempts a game, and 82% at the free throw line, it's no surprise why he's held in such high regard amongst the bigs in the league. But there is a narrative around KarlAnthony Towns that I've always thought was messed up, and that is this narrative that he is soft. Now, I know it really originates from that picture with him and DeMarcus Cousins, and then when Jimmy Butler came and punked him and Andrew Wiggins with the bench players in practice, obviously that just sparked up more of those rumors. But I think the thing that really did the most damage to him was what happened last time that he was in the playoffs. People forget that year that they had Jimmy Butler and they made the postseason, they lost to the Rockets, but he also averaged 15 and 12 while shooting 47% from the field and 27% from 3. Just straight up body bagged by Clint Capella, and he looked real soft. He cannot post up for shit, and posting up has never been a strong suit of KarlAnthony Towns, but these playoffs he's gonna have to go up against some physical bigs, whether it's Steven Adams or DeAndre Ayton, so he's got to get that shit under wraps this year. And even in these playing games, he's got to step up. You could argue about the fairness with the 7th seed and 8th seed this year in the West, but nonetheless, that's how the rules are, and you gotta step up not only as the best player, but the leader on that team. But speaking of leaders on their teams, that brings us to the next player on this list. We got Jimmy Butler. Now, Jimmy Butler is a personal favorite of mine, even though I like to make fun of him in the Miami Heat. I do like Jimmy Butler. He's one of the better defenders in the league, a really solid playmaker, a great finisher, and he always finds ways to be effective in the game, whether it's on the defensive end or moving off the ball, transition game. He'll do whatever he has to do in order to be effective, no matter what, because his shot isn't always going to be falling. And Jimmy, for the most part, has had a pretty solid playoffs in his career. I mean, he obviously led the Miami Heat to the finals a couple of years ago, but this year it's a little bit of a different scenario in my opinion. Last year, the Heat did go out pretty sad in a sweep to the Milwaukee Bucks, and though the Bucks did win the championship, that was the team that they beat in the second round upset the year prior in order for them to go to the finals 2 rounds later. And Jimmy didn't just play bad against the Bucks, he played historically bad for anybody that is on that caliber of a level. I mean, the guy shot below 30% from the field and 25% from 3. The nigga got outscored by Bryn Forbes in that playoff series. Bryn Forbes, who received DMPs for most of the rest of that playoffs. And then in the offseason, the Heat proceeded to still have faith in him as their franchise guy and pay him franchise player money. So now it's up to Jimmy Butler to lead this team that, if any other real superstar had, would be a legit contending team, because y'all know I don't really give a shit about the Heat. I think they're pretenders. But if Jimmy is that guy, then he should be able to lead this team not only to the finals, because he's done that before, but a championship. Because remember those days when people thought Jimmy Butler was a top 10 player after that bubble run? Well, Jimmy, it's time for you to now remind us of that. But speaking of dudes that need to remind us of who they are or who they should be, that brings me to DeMar DeRozan. Now, Debo shouldn't be explained too much, because if we're being honest, when it comes to DeMar DeRozan's career, I think everybody has seen his playoff failures. But the reason I got him on this list is because, man, this guy got hyped to the moon this year. Remember that stretch he went on where he broke Wilt Chamberlain's 35-point game record and all that, which led to him getting some MVP buzz? Yeah, now I need you to do that in the playoffs, because DeMar DeRozan has had this reputation of being an amazing regular season player, and he just had the best regular season of his entire career. But unfortunately, the Bulls now have a reputation of being a team that can't beat consistently good teams. And unfortunately, I just hate that notion, but it is facts. We can't beat the good teams, or the contenders, I should say. And now in the first round matched up against the Milwaukee Bucks, all I ask for DeMar DeRozan to do is not win that series, because one man can't win the series. We are clearly the inferior team, but I'm asking you to play well. I'm asking you to give me 25, 5 and 5 on 50% shooting from the field, or hell, 48, 47% shooting from the field. I don't want to see another playoff catastrophe where he shoots 40% from the field and averages 17 points, then gets benched by Billy Donovan, then Billy Donovan gets fired. Oh, wait, that's the same situation that happened last time he was in the East. But instead of Billy Donovan, it was Dwayne Casey, right? Man, DeMar, you better not sell me this year, bruh. You better not sell me. But let's move on to the final players on this list. I decided to just combine them together. We got James Harden and Joel Embiid. I mean, these are two players that are damn near the same as far as their careers have gone. Obviously, injuries aside for Joel Embiid, but these are two guys that have folded a lot in the playoffs, but usually the excuse from their fan base and many others has been, man, look at the help they have and look at who they're facing. In the case of James Harden, Chris Paul goes down. In certain years, he just didn't have adequate roster help against the Golden State Warriors. That's fine. Then you look at Joel Embiid. Hey man, it's not his fault he had 8 turnovers in the game. It ain't his fault he couldn't score in the second half of a playoff game against the Hawks. Look at Ben Simmons, bruh. He's missing free throws. Okay, fine. Well, now they're together. So what's gonna be the excuse this year? I better not hear a fucking excuse other than chemistry. And even that bullshit chemistry excuse, it ain't gonna fly that much, because if we're being real, they've had enough time to build some chemistry, as everybody was slurping them up when they were beating bad teams like the Knicks when they first came together. Everybody was like, oh, this is the modern day NBA, Shaq and Kobe. Remember that era? Yeah, then James Harden decided to remind y'all niggas who he actually is. A washed, old, fat man with a beard. That left-handed Raymond Felton ain't shit, and I'm telling y'all right now, if he don't step up in these playoffs along with Joel Embiid, because Embiid ain't off the hook either. He's an MVP candidate this year and has failed in the past. But those two better show up and show out, because I'm tired of the excuses with these niggas. They have the talent, they have the roster, and now they're together as number 1 and number 2 guys, and that should be enough. I'm not saying they should win the championship this year, but if they somehow underperform again now together, or even just lose in the first round, oh man, we're gonna have a convo for real. Y'all already know I'm gonna be here with a video on that shit. But that concludes this video. Before I wrap it up, I would like to give a shout out to the latest episode of Hoop Concessions featuring our boy Legend of Winning. Shout out to Low, man. He gave us some nice predictions on the pod for the play-in. We talked about our NBA awards. He gave his, we gave ours. It was a nice little listen. We talked about the Lakers a little bit also. Make sure you check it out. The link is down below in the description box and the pinned comment. But that concludes this video. You guys stay safe and have a blessed day. Your boy Young Mustard signing out. Peace.